It is a long story. It really is. The I don't know. I came into the company when I was about 15 years old. I mean, during the summers and whatnot. And my dad was a waste dealer. He bought all the waste that was produced by the mills, and he then sorted it out. He sorted for color and cleanliness, and then he either sold it to other dealers or to other mills. Um, it was a very interesting time because the all the manufacturers were were basically swamp Yankees, except that was the woolen mills. Now you've seen as all the woolen mills along the Blackstone River. Now, that was the Yankees. Then the French, who built the big plants, uh, they were the worsted mills. They made worsted. I don't know if you know this, Dharma.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
It was like Prouveau Lefebvre, and oh God, I'm having, that's a mill that I bought actually. It's in North Smithfield. It was one of the largest combing mills in the world at the time. I mean, in the country. Um, but you had oh God, Barry wool combing, and um, there used to be most of the fabric was worsted fabric. For instance, Burlington Industries, they use 20 million pounds of top, which they comb themselves. Then you got the company that became Shazia. Uh, they produced 25 million pounds. The company I bought had 20 million pounds, 30 million pounds. Top company, that was the Diamond family. They were up in Massachusetts. Yeah, they probably produced 15 million pounds. So, I mean, that business was huge, and there was a lot of waste that was generated from that. And that's the dealers and the merchants. They were mostly Jewish. Uh, they would get the stuff, put like my dad did. There were probably 150 dealers between Worcester and Woonsocket alone.
Oh,
Yeah,
when was
and
this, Sam? What period of time was this?
oh, you're talking from. I mean, the heydays were uh, during the Korean War. I mean, the Second World War through the Korean War. The end of the Korean War just collapsed. The whole business did. And it, what happened was the market, for instance, the market at the time, the price of wool was $5 a pound. And uh, when the end of Korea came, nobody saw this happening. And the price went from $5 to $1. So any guys in, I was very fortunate. Uh, and I've been told I've been very fortunate because my dad said to me, he said, "Look, you couldn't know that this crash was going to take place. Just keep going. Go after it. Stop buying a dollar, average down everything." But the other guys whose fathers were very tough men, they were, and they raised hell with their kids. They said, "You're a jerk. You never should have done this. It was stupid," and they could never survive after that.
Mm.
So basically, out of the 150 dealers, and most of the sons were involved in the business, they probably lost 130 because just that one reason.
Mm.
Now, the um, sometimes I have a lapse of memory because I've had a couple of strokes, so you have to bear with me.
Don't worry,
Uh,
it's
I'm
fine.
all right. Yeah,
Yeah, let me just tell you
it,
this, that I don't, my Zoom account only allows 40 minutes at a time, but when we get to the end, I will make a new one. If we're still going and you still want to talk, I can set up another one that we can,
Well, are you going to extrapolate from this, or are you going to just
yeah,
run it?
no, I'm
Okay.
going to extrapolate. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. All right. That's great.
yeah.
So, so now uh, the mills started closing down. They had, there was no military business. The mostly a big um, part of the business was for the military, and when the war went down, they went down. So all of a sudden, these mills started closing one after the other, one after the other. So my dad decided. He said, "Look, we can't do anything up in New England. The mills that were starting up in the South, at least, they have a chance because of labor costs. He had unions up here that destroyed
Mm,
the mills. I mean, just absolutely destroyed them.
mm,
Uh, the union bosses had no caring for the help. All they wanted to rinse themselves, and like a perfect example was there was a company called Stamen Mills. It was one of the foremost blankets in the country. And when things started slowing down, they said, look, in our agreement with the union, uh, we have to run 3 shifts, 7 days.
mm,
So if we do that, we're going to go broke.
mhm,
So what we'd like to do is we will honor everything, but we have to go to 2 shifts. All right, rather than we can't run 3 shifts. And the labor union said, no, no, you signed the contract. They shut the mill down, went out, and 350 people are gone. All right. And it was terrible. Well, so,
So did you, what happened when you got back up and running? Did you get those people back or
I'm sorry.
when you, got back up and running, did you get those people back, the workers?
No, they were gone. The mill shut down.
Yeah.
That particular mill just finished.
Oh, I
Um,
see.
and it's never opened. I mean, it's nothing.
Mm,
So, and that happened to a lot of guys, a
mm,
lot of mills. All these the mills were uh, family owned,
mm-hmm,
and they were successful, but they didn't make a lot of money.
mm-hmm,
You know, but they weren't. They didn't have to borrow money, so they could make only a few points. Um, and that's one of the reasons the whole textile industry went bad in North America was because you had companies, family-owned companies, J.P. Stevens, Burlington Industries. These guys had 100 mills, 150 mills, and they did $1 billion worth of business, and they made probably $30 million a year. But all of a sudden, the hedge funds in New York, the money guys, said, "Hey, these guys are like a gold mine. They have no debt. They have all these assets, and they're making like 3%. So we'll buy them cheap." So, and they did. They paid off the families, and they were supposed to maintain the plants, but it was easy to liquidate them, and shut it down and grab the cash. So there's more cash in the plant than there was, you know, in the in what they paid for it. So, is this making sense to you at
yeah,
all?
yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. So then, my company, which my dad had at the time, he was a carpetbagger. He was the first guy to drive down the south, and there were a lot of mills there, very successful, because they were exporting. They were ahead of the curve, and we did well down there. Uh,
That was like in the 1960s or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But again, the same thing happened down there. These guys came in, and took them out and over. There's one company out of Canada. It's called Victor Woolen. They bought J.P. Stevens, had 100 mills. They bought Chatham Manufacturing, one of the premier mills in the world, Guilford of Maine. All of those have been shuttered. They shut it down. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
because they didn't know what they were doing. Well, they got a lot of money from the Banyan banks to survive. So, and then, so I saw that the writing was on the road. We had no customers left, so we had to get into manufacturing.
Mm.
And the way we did it was a little circuitous because uh, we had the mills that were operating. We used them as contractors for us,
Mm-hmm.
and we gave them business. But then they got smart. They said, well, we don't need Brickle anymore. So let's cut them out and we'll go after that direct customer. And I've always had a theory, never get mad, just get even. So, so I went after that business from them and I gave it to other people. And they ended up shutting down. And we had other subcontractors that we could use who were very honest. We explained to them. We up front, we said, this is what it's going to cost us. This is what's going to sell. And the major problem in textiles and a lot of manufacturing, which is reliant on seasons. You had a fall season, the spring. You had 4 seasons to deal with in the woolen mill. Woolen mill really has only two. It's the fall and winter season. So in order to make those goods, you have to make them starting in March. All right. And you make them through October. Then you get those to the market and they start cutting and sewing, making the fabrics and everything else. But it leaves you 6 months that you're not doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we came up with the idea, for instance, we'll take a fabric like a wool flannel. Okay. So the mills were going broke making this because they were shut down for 6 months of the year. So we went to the mills and we said, look, we're going to take this business, all this flannel business, and rather than running it for 6 months, we'll run it for a year. All right. So we're going to keep you busy, during the time that you're not busy. And we'll run like huge inventories. So, but you're going to have to, you can't make a profit on what we're doing for the 6 months. You have to cut back your whole thing so you break even, and you will make your money, when you're producing, when you should be producing, and and they love that. The whole concept was wonderful. Yeah. And that became the bane for our success. It was, it just turned out great for everybody.
Yeah.
So, and then we started. Some of these guys were getting old, and we started taking them out and buying their mills, and so today we're no longer merchants, really. We make everything, we manufacture for ourselves. Some of the products that you see, the berets, the baseball yarn. We just bought that plant in Maine. That was the last one available in North America, and we bought it just to make that baseball yarn.
And what were they producing? They were making the yarn that you bought, or
Sorry?
were they making the yarn that you bought or the baseballs?
No, they were making the yarn that we
Yarn.
bought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we bought the yarn, then we ship it to the customer, Rawlings, who then
Okay.
they wrap it and everything else. They make the finished baseball,
Right.
but the
Right.
yarn is 65% of that. And the same thing with berets. In fact, we just got a very large contract where our competitors just said no more. They couldn't do it. And
This is the military berets. Is that,
Yes, all military berets.
did you used to make their like do the uniforms as well, or just the
No,
berets?
we got into that. We got into that a few years ago because we knew all these contractors that were going broke, like Brooks Brothers, Rochester Brothers,
Yeah.
these big companies. So we talked to them. We said, look at, you can't do the military business because it takes a huge amount of cash.
Mm,
All right. You got to do it for 12 months a year. You can't make it 12 months a year. You can make it 6 months out of the year. But so so we kept these guys alive also.
mm,
And we got into the uniform business and we did nothing. We did not touch any material or anything. What we did was we bought the fabric from them. Uh, we bought the buttons, the zippers, everything. And then we went to the cut and sew people, Brooks Brothers and whatnot, and said, "You make the coat," and everybody was happy,
mm,
and they made a great quality.
mm.
And that was something that I don't know we happened on.
When was that time period? When were you making the uniforms, the jackets?
We started making the uniforms about 5 years ago.
Oh, recently.
Yeah,
Oh, I thought for some reason it was back.
no, no.
I'm losing the bottom of your face again. So,
Oh, yeah. Well, you'll have to excuse. This is my cocktail hour. It's very informal.
oh, well, I'm
Uh,
waiting. I'm starting after this, meeting a friend at Jack's bar. Yeah, I know. Wait, for that vodka.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
and that's it. We keep changing. We probably have to change our business 25% a year
Yeah.
to stay ahead of it. Uh, we got into the acoustical business about 4 years ago because I was in a restaurant in Miami and I couldn't stand the noise, and I walked out.
Mm.
And the owner came up to me. He said, "Sam, why?" I said, "I can't stand the noise. It's driving me crazy." He said, "Either can I. What am I going to do?" I said, "I don't know, but I'll be in this business within a year." And we went out and studied research, and now we're the largest producers in North America of acoustical styles.
So
Yeah,
like really the success of your business has been you being able to sort of foresee what the story I'm getting here is that you foresee the decline or where things are going, where they're
yeah.
going away, and then you try to get in on like how to take, well, you tell. I mean, it seems to me like it's a
Exactly. I
talent.
mean, all this stuff comes in from either South Korea or China.
Mm,
Now, that's a that's 6 months lead time.
mm,
You can't live like that if you're an architect or a designer or whatnot.
no.
So I said, listen, this is our shot. You
Mm,
know, unless there are people that want to carry huge inventories.
mm,
And then the goods come in. If they're not right, they're screwed.
mm,
So we have to make sure that we give them good stuff.
mm.
You know,
Yeah.
and yeah, so that's one of the areas that we like. We used to make all the Navy pea coats
Hmm.
from the wool right through the finished product. You know, and then some general decided he wanted to go pot. That was the most longevity fabric ever
Mm.
in the military, and this general decided to go modern. So he's making a ski parka, which we now make. We're chicken feathers or chicken stuff. We'll make it all. It doesn't make any difference. uh, but we have a great time. One of our problems is that we can't get help. We can't operate over 65% capacity. And that's the thing I cannot understand. My son can. They're talking in the news that there's huge unemployment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there isn't. Everybody's looking for workers. I
Yeah.
mean, there's not a town that you can't see a sign, help.
Yeah.
And this is not minimum wage. I want you to know that. You know, we're talking about, you know, within 2 years, the guy's gonna make 45, 50 grand,
Yeah.
with us. I don't know where they are. Can't find them.
Yeah.
So now we're going to women, and
Yeah.
they're much better. You
There
know,
you go. Well,
yeah,
I
yeah, that's what we do.
I can second that.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. But I
So
think, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I'm just trying to think what else. I mean, the museum is such a wonderful thing that they've done.
Yeah, they really yeah, because I told you I had a show there about now about 15 years ago on the project I was doing about the history of textiles in New England. And then I did those, I don't know if you know, in the windows in the on the ground floor, there are the windows with those scrims of the figures of the workers,
Yeah.
in that, like when you walk through past the mill house
Sure.
and then into the big room where there's the looms and the spinning, uh, though I made those scrims for those windows.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so that's,
Yeah.
yeah. And I worked with Ray Bacon and Ann. Um, and yeah, so I was thrilled to see the, all those new installations they have there. Just great.
Yeah.
Yeah, really great educational tools for kids and, you know, so
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah.
I mean, basically, also, um, we think a lot of manufacturing will come back to the States
Mm-hmm.
if we can provide them with help. I mean, that's the big mistake that we've got with Trump, of course, but he's getting rid of all these great refugees that are wonderful workers.
I know. I know.
And that's going to hurt.
Yeah, that's gonna
Uh,
hurt.
but we're very optimistic. We're buying new equipment
Mm.
and whatnot because in order to remedy the labor problem, you got to get more automatic. That's it. Robotic, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what we're gonna do.
So what is so you make the acoustical tiles, you're doing the berets for the
I'm sorry.
military, and what are the other products? Oh, you got to do this to your screen again. Lower your screen.
Okay.
There you go. Um, uh, Besides the berets, what other products? Because you have like there's three divisions you have, um, three areas that you're in that when I was there last summer or this past February.
Well, we're making yarn now for sale for the sweater industry because of the main plant. We've got this all this plant that in Woonsocket that we're building that's on needle punch, on non-woven plant.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a mirror of stuff. It makes insulation, it makes interlining, it makes underfloor covering, it makes insulation, all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We make stuff for the batteries,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is a huge business. That's going to be zillions of dollars.
What goes into the batteries that's
They
textile
use
related?
it. They use a mat that we make to prevent fires. The backup. You hear these things just blow up.
Yeah.
And this
Mm-hmm.
stops that.
Mm.
So yeah, that's a major, major business. Yeah,
So,
that one of the big companies in that is Aspen Aerogels. The one in Pawtucket, they just received a $600 million loan from the
wow.
government.
Wow. Yeah.
That's how important it is. Yeah.
So well, so maybe a tough question. What would you attribute? I mean, so many mills and companies just like you said, closed, went away, couldn't survive. So what is I don't know, it's sort of weird to phrase it this way, but what is the secret to how you are so, you know, alive and going forward? What do you think? I mean, over the years, I mean, from like when you were saying like the Korean War to now, there's been so many upheavals. And
Yeah.
how did you guys, what was the key to your successes.
I just, look for things that other people didn't recognize. There was a need.
Mm,
And maybe it's not genius, but maybe it's a little lucky foresight. What's going to happen down the road. You
you're a
know,
talent.
it's like artificial intelligence.
Mm,
Those guys that saw it 10 years ago, they're making zillions. All right. That's
yeah,
what it
yeah,
took.
yeah.
Unfortunately, I wasn't one of those guys. But I'm a late comer.
Yeah,
I'm in it. You know,
yeah, that's
so,
good. Yeah.
so I can't tell you, we love working. I mean, working was one of I was away all the time. I was traveling all over the world.
Mm.
I was doing, uh, one week I would do 5 countries in Europe in 5 days. Then I would go to South America and spend 2 weeks there. Then I go to China. God knows how much time I spent there. Yeah,
You were sourcing materials.
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah.
And I was also trading. I was buying and selling over there. In this business, a lot of the competitors didn't like each other.
Mm,
So I could spend a week in Summer Street. There were 400 dealers there, and these buildings, they were all right there.
mhm.
And in room 101, had something that if 102 knew he had it, he would buy it from them, but they never talked. So I used to go into 101, you know, and I buy it for $1, and I knew that 102 could use it for $1.30. It was a joke.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I had such a good time.
So, yeah, I had asked you how you managed to stay in business when everybody else was closing, and basically, it's a talent. I think you have a talent, right? I mean,
Well, I'm not sure. Um, I will, I will go into very deep research on anything that I think has merit.
hmm
I really spend a lot of time, and I think this is why my company is really going to thrive, because what used to take me sometimes 6 months, a year, I can do it in 10 minutes now with
hmm
the artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And
So
that,
how is AI helping you? In what way? Like, how do you use it?
well, for instance, the acoustical business, you know, who are the major suppliers throughout the world? Who are the who are the customers? Uh, what is the fabrication made of? Uh, what chemicals are being used? Where do you get the chemicals used that you're going to use? I mean, it's a myriad of stuff. I mean, you learn the whole business in no time.
Mm,
I mean, it's going to have a very difficult time for the marketing people,
mm,
and the sale, marketing and development, product development, because it's there, it's right in front of you. So you're going to be
yeah.
able to do it with a lot less people, and they're going to be able to stay at home. Yeah,
So it's essentially it's doing research for you. I mean, you're feeding
sure.
it, you know,
Yeah.
the information it needs to get all that information.
Well, I mean, I used to have to make trips to China,
Yeah.
to Asia, all
hmm
over,
hmm
just to find out, how to source it, where to go.
hmm
Indians, yeah,
hmm
India. I mean, I can't tell you how much time I used to spend over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not necessary. I don't have to leave anymore.
Well, yeah, that's become, there's so much remote, work from home businesses
Yeah,
now that it's
yeah.
changed everything. But so that's what I was going to ask you earlier when you were talking about traveling. You were basically sourcing. You were out in the world sourcing
Yeah.
products and um
Raw
company
material, raw
raw
material at the
material.
beginning. Yeah, we
So
used to deal with everything. We cashmere, yak hair, uh, whatever. Yeah.
so you would buy it and then have it brought into the states and made into other products? Is that like,
Well, at the beginning, no, I was trading it. Sometimes I would
okay,
buy it
buying
in
and
South
selling?
Africa and I'd sell it in France,
Mm,
depending
yeah.
on what it was.
Kind of like in the beginning
And
where your father would go to New York and, buy
I
the
think
remnants.
perhaps the most important thing that happened to us was uh, I wanted to become very involved in the International World Textile Organization. That was the whole world organization. And here I was, a little waste dealer out of Woonsocket, Rhode Island. What the hell is it going to be? You had the cream of the creme
Hmm.
uh, at the pinnacle of this whole thing. And Laura Piana, Giovanni. I mean, these guys, Laura Piana, I mean, Prouveau Lefebvre, he had the largest private collection of Picasso in the world. I mean, that he owned
Uh,
Paris Match, the magazine. It was like Life magazine.
yeah.
Yeah. And this was it. And so I decided that I was going to be a factor into this thing. And what I did was I took a deep interest in the contracts and arbitration committee, in which they used to deal with all the problems throughout the world. If India and China had a problem, it would come before us, the whole thing. Well, that was all well and good, but their rules were terrible. In fact, in order to show how bad their rules were, that I lost an arbitration and I refused to pay. And
What were
that's
the
a
rules? What rules?
well, it's a rules that uh, you uh, the country of the seller is where the arbitration would take place, no matter if it was the customer was in the United States or anywhere else in the world. And they wouldn't show samples. There were no, you weren't allowed to bring anybody to testify.
Hmm.
And so when I lost the arbitration and I refused to pay, that was a death knell for me. Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, the first time I went to the meeting after that, there were like 1,500 people. I had 1,499 people boo me. And they were
Oh,
going to throw me out of the comment, the whole, yeah. And finally, one of my friends, an Australian wool dealer, said, we know Sam quite well. Why don't you let him explain why he's not going to pay? And then I explained, your rules are outlandish. They don't work. In fact, the United States would not accept those rules because they're wrong.
mm,
And I explained to them hours and hours what was wrong with their blue book, they call it the rules
mm,
book.
hmm.
And so, um, and they finally said, he's right. So why don't we change all these rules that are wrong?
Mm.
So I became chairman of the committee
Oh, that's just like
to rewrite all those rules.
amazing.
Now, nobody would screw with me after that because, you know, I, if there's a trouble between India and China,
Yeah.
I'm the one that would perform that arbitration.
Mm.
And my word was locked. If
Wow.
if you
Yeah.
didn't go by my decision, you were thrown out. This is a country, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that opened up all kinds of avenues
Mm.
that for instance, my son said to me one day, he said, Dad, we have 10,000 potential customers in India. I said, well, that's nice, but you can't call on 10,000 customers. So I said, I'm going to go to the chairman of the committee in India
Hmm.
and ask him what people we should call on. He gave us five. He said, this is the five. don't sell anybody else over there. Just deal with and those are the guys we've been dealing with for 40 years.
Wow.
It
Amazing.
just locked up, unlocked all of because in a lot of trading businesses, it's who you know.
Hmm.
And yeah. So that was great. And then, of course, when I went on 60 Minutes, that even gave us more notoriety.
You were on 60 Minutes.
I was a feature on 60 Minutes.
Tell me about that.
I was with um, Leslie Stahl. She came to Woonsocket, my plant, and we worked for 3 hours. And
Wow.
it's considered still a classic. It's played on all these planes going
Oh my
to
God.
Asia, and you can pick it up, by the way.
Yeah.
Uh,
So like just Google, I guess,
it would be
60 Minutes.
um, Sam Brickle, H. Brickle and Son, uh, dealing with uh, federal prison industries,
Dealing with federal what?
prison industries.
Like in incarceration prison?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
They hurt a lot of businesses because they got these guys for 20 cents yeah,
Right.
an hour, and they could take the business. They could take it anytime they wanted.
Uh,
And we lost a major contract, and I went before Congress. And I've never been afraid to go before groups if I have a gripe. You
yeah,
know,
that's
and no,
that
so
takes a
yeah,
lot.
it's very interesting, really.
Mm.
Yeah,
You're an amazing guy.
it was fun. It really was. It
We
was.
could have like 3 hour conversation. Um, uh, yeah, I had a thought that you were talking about what you were talking about before uh, so tell me about, because my colleague on this project is from Brisbane, Australia. Well, actually Ipswich. There was a mill there, Queensland Woolen Manufacturing Company in Ipswich. And I think they went out of business in the mid to late 80s,
Yeah.
but they wove blankets for the military. And then they tried to transition to other things, but it didn't work. And they had a lot of problems with like labor issues and um, environmental. Anyway,
What
they,
happened? I'll tell you what happened to the basic uh, countries that produce fiber: New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, and whatnot. Most of them didn't go beyond the primary producing, taking wool and combing it and scouring it and whatnot. And then they would sell it to, they would export it all over the world. Continue on with it. What happened was when China got into the YWTO, I was the only one that vetoed it, them coming in, and everybody went crazy. Even the US said, "How could you do that? You're embarrassing us and everything." Is they're going to get in here, find out how to do everything. They went to Australia. They built the scouring mills. Oh no, they didn't build the scouring mills there. They built them in China. So they took the raw material from the sheep's back and shipped it. So
mm,
there was no industry anymore
mm,
left in these countries to process. So they had the whole deal. They had the primary processing and then the advanced processing. Then and it happened just the way I called it.
mhm.
And that, to this day, they say, "Sam, you were so right. We never should have let him in." You know, so
Well, that's what happened to my
yeah,
industry. I was in the apparel, printed fabrics, and
yeah,
it's exactly what happened. We let them in, like Liz Claiborne, the dress manufacturers we worked with would just take the artwork to Europe and I
yeah,
mean to Asia, and they would just do the whole thing. Wasn't as great
yeah,
a product in the beginning, but then they figured it out. So
yeah,
I watched this just, our customers take it to China, and
sure,
so
yeah.
yeah.
So
but not my story. But
What
but yeah,
company did you work for?
I worked for a company called Fashion Fabrics of America, which was kind of a stupid name, but it was owned by it was a we did dye and discharge printing rayons in the South, in North South Carolina and in Paterson, New Jersey. And
Yeah.
we were owned by a French company called KBC, I mean a German company called KBC, and they were owned by DMC, the French company. And we worked at some of the mills. Some of our printing was done in Germany at their mills there. They're all gone. I worked with a company in Lyon, France called Colmar. They're gone. Um, but all the print mills that I ever worked with are, like until like they just were closing through the 90s up until the early 2000s. Um, but I entered the industry in 1979, and by 2003, I was gone.
Nothing. It's
Everything had
gone.
closed. Yeah, just all gone.
Yeah.
But we never, I mean, that never recovered. I mean, that industry, I don't think that, like the dress, the clothing, women's clothing,
Yeah.
fabrics, well, it won't come back. It's too disposable now, it's
Yeah.
not profitable. So there's a company, do you know American Woolen Textiles in Connecticut?
Sure.
Yeah, because I just learned about them, and um I guess they bought, or they're trying to revive, they're doing high-end wool for
They got
like
no chance. They
garments,
have
but
no chance to make it. No.
no chance. And so are
They
they?
have they first of all, that requires the most technical help that you can find, making worsted fabrics.
Mm,
You just get he's blown 20 million, his family's blown $20 million in the company.
wow. Wow.
And the only thing that's kept him alive is there's some crazy number that the government gives him $2 million a year to stay open. And there's like four companies that get it. Burlington gets it. You know, we've been trying. We deserve them better than anybody else, so we can't get it. So
So
but
it's kind of like they're just subsidizing the companies to be able to give
yeah,
people work. Is that to keep jobs in place?
it's just been there for 100 years. It used to be like subsidies. Well, they still do it
Yeah.
here in the States and cotton and whatnot.
Yeah.
But in Australia, they've stopped it all. Australia, New Zealand, they don't do it anymore.
Oh, that's a part
Yeah,
of, yeah.
yeah,
Because also I know that fashion played into it, like people, after the war when rayon came in, um, it killed the wool, like in apparel, like fashion anyway. People wanted rayon, so I think that was a big factor in the Australian woven woolens, right?
yeah.
So, um, yeah. But I think what strikes me the most about your company is how diversified you are, and how you've changed over the years, how you've managed to just, I mean, it
Yeah.
isn't just looking at like textiles as a fiber and weaving it and making it into some other product, but it's like how you can fit these industries to get these other things together into um
But the other thing is that we're a major recycler, and we know that business as good as anybody does.
so
And
you
we
bring in
we
fabric?
recycle we recycle all our own fiber. I mean, you haven't been to the plant in North Smithfield, have you?
No.
No, that's a 500,000 square foot plant that
Uh,
we have a few operations going on over there, but it's still basically it's one of the premier recycling companies in the world.
oh my God.
Yeah,
Huh. And so do you bring in um fabrics of all kinds and then
yeah,
reprocess them?
yeah. Recycle.
Wow.
We don't handle anything that's old.
Mm,
No old clothes and stuff like that. No.
mm.
It's just manufactures a waste that we
Oh,
deal
okay.
with.
Oh, so like remnants and things.
Remnants we do
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
as long as it hasn't been worn.
Okay. Yeah. So it's
You know,
not used
yeah,
clothing going into
yeah.
things.
and we're
reprocessed.
very good at that business. That
Yeah.
and one of the successes that we have is we know where to find that material.
So you're producing, what are you producing from it? Like yarns?
We produce yarn. We also we've just come up with a fabric or something new that the sponge pads that you use in your house in the sinks.
Yeah.
Well, that's 100% plastic. All
Mm,
right. When you wear that down, that becomes the microplastic that gets in the water system.
mm,
And there's a billion of those used every year. A billion. All right. And that's never goes away,
mm,
ever. It stays in the system. All right, forever and ever and ever. We came up with 100% protein pad that we're just now trying to get out there. But it's a lot of problems because it's so political.
mm,
A lot of big companies are involved, as Procter and Gamble and whatnot. But they
mm,
don't want to see their name. We're working on that. And I'm having a tough time
mm,
getting that across the board. But it makes sense.
mm,
And this thing will last. It'll last 3, 4 times longer than the plastic thing. And when it's gone, it's protein.
mm.
It
Yeah.
yeah, it reinvents itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's also I've just learned about an organization called Fiber Shed, and they are it's a national, it's a globe, excuse me, it's a global operation, but it's all about recycling, like starting, locally and
Yeah,
you know,
I'm having a lot of problems connecting with them. I mean, I just don't. I think I just don't understand what they're doing. I
mm,
mean, we should be the main guy that they're talking to in the world.
mm.
We have more information than anybody in the world. All right, and they don't nothing.
Is it
Even
an
on this thing, even on this protein thing. I'm in Miami now. And I have meetings with Save the Bay and the Ocean Clean, and you know, and I showed them, no,
mm.
it's a very hard. I'm going to have to get ugly with it at some point.
Yeah, it's I mean, I don't know. I think our country, I mean, I know that Greenpeace is being sued by Exxon for something happening at a rally. And yeah, it's, I don't know. I think that we have a long way to go before we reach a place where we're able to really, handle, um, or take on the,
The
the,
Exxon, look at the spill.
yeah, right.
Excuse me.
Mm,
It happened in Mexico. Well, we shipped down a truckload of wool blankets. Wool is a thing to absorb oil. All right, it will hold the oil. It will hold 10 times its weight, and you
mhm,
can take it out and and just squeeze it out and use the blanket again and again and again. They didn't know what to do. That was the U.S. Coast Guard I sent it to. What do we do with this? I said, you put it out where all your mangroves are,
mhm,
mangroves, and you protect them.
mm,
You protect your beaches. You put it out there. It was a waste. I mean, it's very frustrating some of the things that we do.
yeah.
Because I become a passionate guy once I do some of the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, textiles, people like to, you know, say that textiles have been a major factor in polluting, rivers
Yeah.
and all of that. But I think that it's interesting that you can't now turn it around and get somebody to pay attention to,
Yeah.
manufacturing textiles can be, more
Yeah.
environmentally
And
friendly.
and I'm really the marketing guy, the
Mm,
sales guy in the company. My son loves the manufacturing part and the whole thing. Uh, so I'm 86 years old. I don't, I don't have a lot of time left.
Well, your son is running the business. Is
He
he
owns the business.
yeah. I said, oh, he owns the business? You
Yeah,
said no. Yeah. So does his children, do they have an interest in
no interest,
mm,
no interest.
mm,
It's a pity. It really is. He's the fourth generation. Yeah,
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 fourth generation.
yeah,
I thought, yeah, wow, I thought it was third. Yeah.
yeah.
It is amazing. Really, your story.
Yeah,
That's
we're very proud of this company. We are.
yeah, really. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I know. Well, you should be.
yeah.
I'm just so thrilled that you gave me this time.
All right.
Thank you so much, Sam. It's been really
Thank you.
yeah.
Appreciate it.